Hello there, folks. Yeah, I made a video the other day. I didn't upload it, and I was just angry when I woke up in the morning at a few thoughts. And some days I get angry and I don't know why, and it's like it eats away at me all day. And I thought, okay, I'll come for a walk. You know, I can always deal with my anger, but maybe it does bottle up when I get angry about things. Anyway, I came for a walk, turned my camera on and started ranting and shouting and swearing about things and mentioning names. And I finished the video, and I think you'd have loved it. I think it'd have been quite dramatic. And I watched it back and I thought, yeah, you know, most of the time I'm not angry nowadays. So why publish myself with something that's angry? Put it this way, if I'm going to do a video where I'm going to get angry, then I need a pretty good reason. I'm not going to get angry about like little people. I don't mean little people in that way, but people who, you know, petty tyrants. You know, people who are around you just not thinking, just out of silliness or stupidity or ignorance or whatever, just saying things or doing things. You know, to a certain degree, I can forgive those people because we're in such a confusing world and that. And so I have to be careful not to let myself get caught up in thinking, oh, all these people are to blame, and if everybody just changed and wasn't so stupid, and you know that's actually something that I left a long time ago. You know, I really had a revenge for the government at one point. You know, several years ago. I considered the system, the society that we know, had kind of broken my life. You know, just the school days of the indoctrination and forcing us to be somebody we didn't really like. Nobody enjoyed school, so you know that. And myself, I've kind of almost tried to forget those years. You know, a lot of years. It's the core of my being that I'm trying to kind of suppress. The childhood years, I have, you know, less memories of how it was done, but there was a lot put into our heads while we were children. And then there's television. You know, we was raised on television, everything, the propaganda, the films, the media, the soap operas, the news, and that becomes majority popularity. You know, whatever the majority believe becomes then real. You know, and so we live in this like false world, really. You know, as we all know, it's like a double world. It's the one of real physics and like, you know, earth, wind, water, fire. And then there's this other media world that I get really angry at. And so I spent a lot of time turning that anger into trying to find sweet revenge on the system. I thought, okay, I'm going to get my revenge on politicians and snobs and lawyers and priests and barristers. All of these people I perceive to have any form of power over any other people were in my target line, you know. And it was take me to your leader to try and find out who is it that's supposedly influencing or controlling or manipulating society to the point where people are suffering. And it's not just my suffering. If it was only me suffering, then I'm sure there'd be a lot of people around me to help. But nobody these days is able to help each other with certain aspects because everybody's just too tied up. Too little time, too little money, too little resources, too many duties, too much responsibility. Really catch-22 situation we've got ourselves into as a humanity, as a civilization, as a society. It's like we've given the power to those people who say, you know, who say they warrant it or whatever. So I'm thinking to myself, how can I get my own personal power back if no one around me is going to help and everybody else is like flipping out and confused and stuck on certain ideas? What can I do? You know, I want sweet revenge. So I started reading a lot of law books and things like that. I thought to myself, okay, maybe the answer is, you know, obviously the injustice, justice. I want justice. You know, why isn't the church doing anything if it's so moral? You know, why isn't the government doing anything if it's so powerful? And I studied a lot, and I was looking at a video from my last year from the mystery show, and I was talking back then about a discovery I'd made, for myself, my own observations, something that just changed the way I was thinking. And it kind of led me to believe that the revenge that I was seeking, the enemy that I was looking for in all of this paperwork, in all of this indoctrination, this doctrine and everything, society, the world, the enemy that I was tracking down and hunting with all of my might was me. But obviously it doesn't stop there, because I can't change the whole world, and there are a lot of problems, there are people suffering. So therefore, if I'm the enemy to myself, how can other people be the enemies to their selves? How can we resolve that? What is that? It's a very, very complicated mechanism that's so... It's like mathematics, like 2 is double 1 sort of thing, and it can't be anything else sort of thing. And so when you look at the society and think how, if it couldn't be any other way, how would it be? How would a society have to be? How would its citizens and individuals in that society be reflected on paper? How would we be able to distribute power and authority and to build such a pyramid within the mind, And people don't see the pyramid. They don't see their own role that they've been born into in that pyramid. There's only a potential of power. I perceive each man and woman to possess the potential of freedom, at least in a certain way. And so this pyramid power, this pyramid idea that's built from the media and faith and money and legislation and law and ideas, anything that's like man-made ideas, it's kind of overwhelmed everybody. And so I'm not really so angry anymore about things. But there is anger there, there's anger there towards, events, people's actions. And I think most of all, there's anger when I'm in the world trying to make people happy, and I don't feel too good. Everybody's got their own little worries about other people's worries, and so everybody's got reason to worry. And I try often, to be happy and make jokes and try and make light-heartedness of the situation, just so that the day's worth living, so that we're alive at least. We've made it through another day, being happy, because being unhappy. But then when it's like with a performer, if you're playing songs and you're trying to amuse somebody and make them happy and they're not amused, then maybe it's anger that wakes them up. Maybe it's the spirit. Maybe we need to feel spirited, with each other's anger. I don't know, but I don't know whether I should ever express anger. I think there's a certain point where I've learned to control my anger and really focus what I say and not make mistakes. So I'm not so worried about actually losing my temper. I can usually kind of keep my temper when I'm angry, I think. But there's still things I say that I wouldn't normally say if I was just calm and clear. I just feel sometimes that people don't hear the words unless they've got a particular frequency. It's like a radio, if you start getting angry and shouting, it's like tuning into emergency channel. And there are times where we need to say, hey, emergency, but I don't want to call an emergency on something that isn't. This whole thing, it takes time. There's steps, there's a pace to be kept. I need to keep my own patience. I could run straight down to any political building now and start shouting outside just to relieve myself of the anger. But for me, it's more about trying to get my brain, my mind to understand that anger can be focused on wisdom and logic and reason, and you know, to look at reason and clarity, because, you know, I'm responsible for my own thoughts. So if I think I've got the rights to just think loads of like confusion that I've taken from outside without reasoning with it, then yeah, you know, but as above, so below sort of thing, you know, the heavens and the earth, the mind and matter, you know, it should be one. You know, we should be at one with our material world. Our mind should be able to create something and then not manifest it, because it doesn't do it on its own, but our hand, you know, can take what's in the mind and make it happen. As long as the mind, it stays within, you know, in union with the earth. Anyway, I've said enough, I think, on this video. But basically, with the anger thing, you know, I do find that the anger is quite entertaining and dramatic and spiriting, and I think there's a time for it. But I do notice myself, I do prefer to stay really calm and to say these things that I feel are really, really, really important to our development. And I'm only saying little pieces. There's loads of people saying stuff, and I know that the answers are all inside of us, so you don't really actually need to find any answers. Anybody you listen to will give you, you know, little pieces of the puzzle that you've already got there. It's just like, look, you know, being able to look at, you've got like the whole box with a picture on the puzzle in your heart. You know, it's just trusting in that picture. And then, you know, so when somebody else comes along and says something in a way and you think, wow, you know, that somehow rings true to me, then that recognition, that, you know, the puzzle, the same puzzle piece that matches, it gives us then the strength to realise that what is written in our own hearts is true. And we can also then realise that the mistakes we're maybe making with the thing, and say, okay, I need maybe to look more into my heart, to learn how to trust it, how to read it, you know. Because it's then a combination between reading the heart and the mind and the soul and your gut, you know. So you've got the wisdom, and you've got the passion, and you've got the spirit to do something, you know. And then when all of those different parts of you are all in harmony, then wonderful, you know, wonderful things come clear. And clarity, it overcomes fear, you know, and leads to power. And then power obviously leads to freedom and yeah, goodness. Yeah, there's a lot of hope, folks. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Hope you're doing well. See you soon. Cheerio.